Leading stories, trending topics, changing narratives. You're listening to the Critical Conversations Podcast.
That's right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Critical Conversations Podcast. My name is Dr. Rick Daniels, and I serve as the Director of Institutional Equity and Inclusion right here at Oakton College. Today, I want to ask, truthfully, and not just in passing, how are you doing? I hope you're well, because there's a lot happening in the world that may cause anxiety, fear, depression. But I hope you're leaning into things that bring you joy, things that you find that are peaceful. I hope you're leaning into your loved ones and not your haters, because we all need it today. And so before we even get into any of the particulars of this episode, I hope you're doing all right. Today's episode is entitled Unlocking Opportunity, Elevating the Adult and Continuing Education Student Experience at Oakton. The objective is to foster an inclusive dialogue that highlights the experiences, challenges, and opportunities for adult and continuing ed students here at Oakton. I am joined by three fabulous colleagues, all of which I've had the chance to work with directly, and I've had the opportunity to spend some time with them on this subject, and I'm grateful for them to be on the show today. I want to ask everybody to introduce yourselves very quickly. Give me your first and last name and your area of the college, and we'll get started with the show. Let's begin.
Hi, well, I am Delia Rodriguez. I'm the Dean of Adult and Continuing Education.
Welcome, Dean.
Thank you.
I'm Elena Smoukova, Senior Manager of Adult Education.
Welcome to the show, Elena.
I'm Itri Papanikolla, Transitions Coordinator here with the Adult Education.
So I'm going to start with just a lowball question. Let's have some fun with this one. If you could enroll in any non-credit course at Oakton, purely for personal interest, what would it be and why?
It's a good question. So it made me relook at all of our offerings and what we give and what would I take, right?
Yeah.
And
you went through all of them?
I did. I went to go look through them all. And for me, and I know Itri and I had spoken a little bit about this before, for me, it was all about the money. Like, what can I do to make some more money on the side, little side hustle? So I said real estate. I would probably take a real estate class.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we were just having this conversation, and I would say 20 years ago when my family and I moved here, obviously I would have to take English, and I did take English. But at this moment, definitely a real estate broker's license class would be very interesting. And, we just had the Super Bowl not long ago, and the most popular commercial in the Super Bowl halftime was Rocket Mortgage. And it ended with a statement that said, everyone deserves a shot at the American dream. And it resonates not only with the question, but also with what our students are here for.
Yeah, that's perfect. I as soon as you said that, I was making that connection, because having a shot at equity, having a shot at opportunity, right? That's what this is all about. And that's why I love this area of the college, because I feel like diversity, equity, and inclusion, it exists in so many different forms. And this is an initiative that fosters equity and inclusion throughout many communities. So that's great. So we got 2 real estate courses, okay? Elena, what about you?
Well, I didn't look through the catalog, but the very first thing that came to mind was that I would love to take a language class. I know we offer French and Italian and German from time to time. So I love learning more about different languages and culture, and that would be my first choice.
All right, so I'm going to say real estate, but I might take the language class so I can sell homes in different countries. How about that? We'll make it work.
Or to different communities here.
Yes, yeah. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Capitalize on that, yeah.
That is the question that leads into a segue into this first topic. There's such a variety of courses and course offerings, and so I would imagine that there are a variety of students that come through these doors as well. Let's talk about their experiences. What are some of the current experiences of adult and continuing ed students?
So before we get into that, can I just define adult and continuing ed a little bit? Because I think that most people on even on our college campus don't understand the difference between adult ed and continuing ed, because there is a difference, right? Yeah. We work in unison and we work together, but there is a difference. So for our adult ed, where our great people here are representing today, that would be our ESL, GED, literacy, citizenship classes. And then when you look at our CE side of the house, you have more of workforce, personal programs, youth, our youth STEAM, and then emeritus program. So,
and can you tell us what STEAM stands for?
That's our youth science, technology. Help me out.
Engineering
and math. Engineering, art, and math.
Art and math. Yeah. Yes. Because it was STEM.
Yeah.
But did it recently become STEAM? Did art recently get added to that, or is that something that's been around for a while?
It's been around for a little bit.
So I'm looking to the training. Right.
Yeah.
They both exist.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for laying that out, because the what is conversation is key. In terms of students, how do we tell us about some of the student experiences from your perspective?
Yeah, so let's just highlight first, like the students that represent all of our programs, right? So currently in our adult education classes, we are running at 2,939 students that have enrolled this year alone.
Wow.
We are up 700 students from last year this time. So we are growing astronomically, and the need is out there, right? Our students come from over 100 different countries and speak over 77 different languages. So it's amazing. And then that's the adult ed side of the house. So the continuing ed side of the house, we have about 1,500 students that make up, workforce, personal programs, youth, emeritus, and those programs are just growing as well.
You said there are up 700 students around
for adult education classes. Yeah.
What do you think that's attributed to?
A number of factors. I would imagine immigration would be one of them. We have a lot of recent immigrants who have joined our ESL classes. Particularly our low-level, beginning-level ESL has grown by leaps and bounds in the last couple of years. And it may be slowing a little bit now, but our beginning level, there is a lot of need there.
I also think the community college overall is helping a lot more students than it used to be. Like college tuition has grown. I read an article the other day by 250% in tuition over the past 10 years.
Wow.
And so our affordability, flexibility, our free classes, I think there's attention that is being drawn to our community, not just our ESL students, but even the communities around us, the high schools around us, which puts us in a great position to be able to help these students transition, and then also see our future wanting to come here as their choice instead of a second option or a third option, which is great to see. I spoke at Evanston Township High School the other day, and Northwestern was next to us, and it was great that we were right there with another big school, and a lot of parents were considering Oakton, and a lot of them did not speak the language, so they're trying to integrate themselves in our community. So they saw us as an opportunity, not for themselves, but also for their children to grow here.
Yeah. Do we see that Oakton has, for a while now, emphasized adult learners? Do we see a lot of adult learners in these programs? And if so, how would you describe maybe some of their experiences based upon your interactions with them?
We generally have a lot of adult learners. We've really welcomed the college's focus on adult learners, and I think it dovetails very nicely with the goals of adult education and transitioning adult students. But in general, our students have been anywhere from 16 to 66 years old and beyond, with a lot of students in their 30s, 40s, and 50s.
So you do see a range in age.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, on both sides of the house. So when we're looking at adult education, a lot of that is ESL. I mean, when we're looking at CE, continuing education, a lot of that is workforce. And so people thinking about, in their 30s now, they want to change careers, they want to try something different, but they don't have the time because they still have to put the food on the table. And so they need to get something quick, that quick credential, so that they can turn around and start making some more money for their families.
Yeah. That leads into the next topic in terms of the systems, right? You talked about credentials. I mean, I'm curious to know about some structural or policy changes that have helped to better to support this area. Tell us about how adult and continuing ed is structured. What are some of your key policies? How does this structure support the student experience?
Well, and as we've talked about, Dr. Daniels offline before about this, and thank you for listening. Obviously, our students, as they're going through ESL and our HSC program. So, for example, someone that's taking our English second language classes, we have 5 different levels. So they start at a certain level. And eventually they exit the program. And the same thing with our HSC students, they receive their high school diploma. So something that we would love from the college, to collaborate with us as far as like a policy is to be able to help them have a seamless transition. So once they're done with us and they're transitioning from the non-credit side to the credit side, it's challenging for them because they're very structured with us. They have step 1, step 2, step 3. And once you go into the credit side, a lot of the weight goes on them as far as what classes they have to take, how they're going to afford those classes. It's really challenging for them, for example, to apply for a scholarship because they don't have a GPA. They're not enrolled in any classes yet. And the same thing for financial aid. So as we had talked offline in the past too, we have a goal of creating something like a Jumpstart scholarship, like the ability to have something set aside for our ESL exiting students and HSC graduates, even if it's like a $500 grant towards, their first class.
That's powerful.
Which would be great for them. It would be great for them to start. And then as they, finish that first college class, then they truly will see the Oakton experience that we advertise here at the college. Because right now they don't see, the clubs. They're not able to do a lot of the things that the other students do due to them being in zero credit classes. So having something like that, and among other things as well. But a lot of other colleges are doing something similar to this. They call it a Jumpstart scholarship or something to help them. That's new to me.
I've never heard that.
Yeah. And that would be great for them to stay here a little longer. It will be better success, better retention. And as I said, with Illinois Community College Board policies, retention is always being seen in the first year. Numbers show that students that are unsuccessful during their freshman year in college, they have about 25% chance of getting an associate's degree. So if you're struggling as a freshman, it would be very challenging for you to continue. So that's why it's important for us to, again, make that transition as easy as possible. So that would be one of the ideas that we have as a team.
Yeah. Do we see a lot of students transition into credit courses at Oakton?
We do.
Okay.
Unfortunately, because of how we have everything laid out as far as data and making sure that we have all the right data in place, we're not tracking it the way we should be.
Okay.
And it's hard to track because our students are put in the system, but we don't track them. Like they're in the system as a non-credit student. And so there are issues with the way that we track our students. And so it's a little difficult to just keep track of. But I think we're making strides. I think we could do better. We always do better, right? In making that seamless transition from non-credit to credit, not having to go through the application process. I'm in talks right now with enrollment to see what we can do to make that transition better for our students, because right now it's a bit of a hassle, not just for our students, but I think for our transitioning team. Yeah. Itri and Laura and Tiffany, they all do an amazing job at helping getting our students, to where they need to be. But I think about those adult returning students that maybe didn't come through us, right? We do a lot of hand-holding in adult ed to get them where they need to be, to make sure that they feel safe and secure going to whatever their next is.
And you find that that's necessary?
Absolutely, especially with adult learners. They need more, right?
Yeah.
They haven't been in school, especially if you're thinking about like workforce, they haven't been in school for years.
That's the point, yeah. It reminds me of the boxes over the fence picture, right? Being able to provide boxes or remove fences if necessary. Let me go back to the challenging part about that you mentioned in terms of the transition and how we track that. This is a question that's not on the sheet, but I thought about it when you asked. Is there like a completion ceremony that happens? How do we celebrate and honor students who complete? Is there a structure in place for that?
We celebrate the GED graduates. Are invited in the commencement. We're very grateful for that. Yes. So Itri just told us that we have 60 graduates this year that have been invited. It's wonderful that we have so many. And with that, I wanted to say that there is interest in continuing to credit. And do many continue? We don't know the exact number, but we are sure there are many more who want to. Just yesterday, we were at an event, a collaboration, a continuing ed, adult ed, non-credit early childhood education program that students completed. And their number one question was, how do we continue? How do we continue? What are the next steps? How do we continue developing our career? Yes. So there is definitely, and because the process isn't easy, both financially and just truly the process, right? Like, how do you become from non-credit to a credit student? How do you make that transition? Yes, there's definitely a lot of students interested in that.
Yeah, so it goes back to what you were saying, Itri, about the Oakton experience and helping get them in that transition phase to transition to the next phase of their academic or workforce career.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what the students tell us when we talk to them. As far as, like Elena said, they want to stay here. They're always asking about what's next. This is their home, away from home. This is their community. And they want to stay here. They want to see what's more for them at Oakton College rather than sometimes traditional students that utilize our services for a couple of years and they transfer. Our students actually want to stay and they want to investigate all the different options to help themselves and their families. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to go back because I'm hearing us all throughout these acronyms and like ESL, GED, HSE. What is the difference between
yes, please.
GED, HSE?
We're going to need to include that in the description. But please, let's break really, those pieces down for a second.
GED is the test that they take. It's a national norm test that they would take for their general education diploma. But the state of Illinois has the HSE, it's high school equivalency. And so that's the difference. But we're saying the same exact thing. We just use those terms interchangeably. And then English as a second language, ESL, right?
Yeah. Okay, great.
So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. I'm glad, higher ed is not the only industry that's like this, but we're deep with acronyms. So I appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about faculty, staff, and employee support. How can we as a college help to support adult and continuing ed students better? And I say this because I don't want to unfairly classify or put my perspective onto anyone else. But I sometimes feel like we don't pay as much attention to the adult and continuing ed students as much as we could.
Can I give you snaps for that?
Okay. All right. So maybe onto something. We think about conversations in administrators' meetings. We think about the different discussions that we have around students and where they fit into the Oakton experience, enter, navigate, grow, transition. Sometimes these students don't always come up, or at least they're not always named. How can we provide more support? How can we centralize them in our organizational narrative? What can we do better to create a better, more inclusive environment for all students?
I'm just going to start this one out because I'm very vocal about it, right? I think like our non-credit students, all of them are students. I think that's the first thing that people need to understand, that it's not just credit students that are students. It is credit, non-credit. Those are our students, and they're all of our students. So starting off with our caring campus at Oakton Hello, making sure that if we're spending time with a student, no matter what program they're coming from, you're spending time with the student. And we realize adult ed students take a little bit more time because you have to hand gesture, you have to show signs, you have to probably physically walk someone to where they need to go, because you can't just give them a sheet of paper or tell them to look at a map and say, here, go that way. Especially
the warm handoff piece.
Right. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think we've started to make strides and we're making strides in that. I think, especially in DP, here I go again, Des Plaines campus, because we've upped our game in Des Plaines as well. We have a lot more classes. I'm not sure. Do you know?
Yes, I think that's part of it. That traditionally there were almost no adult education classes at Des Plaines. And over the last 3 years, post-pandemic, we started opening a few, and then we saw that the demand was huge and even bigger here than for the Skokie campus. So we kept opening more classes as much as room allows. Now we have 12 classes in the morning and 6 at night at the Des Plaines campus. And it's 6 hours each per week. So they're not just a couple of hours. They're 6 hour classes.
Yeah, it takes time.
So it's a huge presence. 20, 25 students per class. So that's a lot of students, and they all come with questions. They all need support. And I think very naturally, because of it, the Des Plaines campus has started to notice these students because they're among us asking questions.
Yeah.
And I think our colleagues are adapting beautifully. Mm-hmm. We do get a lot of questions, but we're kind of all growing together. I think everyone is learning, oh, yes, this will be here, and we will be answering these questions. And, oh, so they don't know their B number. And, all the differences between credit and non-credits come up one at a time, and people are learning and getting better about directing students. IT is currently developing a video of how you can reset your login and password so that our students can scan that QR code, get to that video, and follow the instructions if they're more high level.
More than that, it's turning it on, from turning on a computer, right? So some of their students, we're talking over 100 different countries. Some countries don't have the technology that we have here.
Yeah,
and so when you hand
the culture
over...
is different around it anyway.
Right. And so when you hand them a computer and say, oh, here's your computer, what am I supposed to do? It's like a brick. What do I do with this? I don't know what to do with this. I don't know where the power button is. I don't know. The alphabet may not even be the same as the language that they're used to looking.
Yeah, that's true.
So
it's not even a QWERTY keyboard. It might be something different. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's really interesting to me, because I feel like in the ways in which we try to focus on centralizing the needs and concerns of adult and continuing ed students, we also have to understand that they're coming from many different places, in some cases around the world. And so our expectations of them and our own expectations of how we work have to change. You might have to spend a little bit more time, right? You might have to think about things more intentionally. I know for me, I've directed quite a few people to the ESL office to get registered. And that helped with the warm handoff. That helped with the, understanding the location and things of that nature. So from a systems perspective, we always ask students to make changes. And we talked about this in administrators meeting, right? We did an exercise in administrators. We showed pictures of everyday objects that were made to be inconveniences. So it was like a fork, but it was a fork that was too wide and too big, so you couldn't eat with it. Or my favorite was a bowl that had a tiny hole in it. And, of course, you have everything but this one piece. And so I used it as a metaphor, sort of a rhetorical question. Is that how some students see our systems? Is that how they see, the makeup of our organization, essentially? And so when we're talking about what staff and employees and faculty and administrators can do better, that's a real question, because that's the question that we need to be focusing on ourselves.
Yeah. I think another thing that I would pull out of that, too, is understanding the difference between content and language. Because we have people that come from all over the world that may not have that language piece and not know English very well, but they are doctors and lawyers in their own country. And so the content level is there. Yeah. But automatically I think as Americans,
say it.
Automatically, you assume that if you don't know English, then you don't know.
Yeah. And oftentimes our biases influence our approach to that. And so that's something that I've even actively worked on, in terms of how I speak, how I approach people, the assumptions that I make in terms of what they may know, versus what I may believe that they know. And those things matter a great deal. Let's end on a high note. I want to hear about a success story. Tell me about a success story within the adult and continuing ed area. And it can be with a student, but it could also be with an employee as well, right? Someone who may have felt fulfilled or had a big sort of, organizational win that provided a resource or stability to the department. Let's end on a high note and have just a brief success story about the program that we can share before we close out today. Anybody can start.
Awesome. Well, as a student support, I was telling the team, I see those stories every day. That's what brings me back here every day. That's, we need to find our reason, right? And for all of us, I think seeing those successes pushes us forward. So we have a group called ICAPS. It's a program. It stands for Integrated Career and Academic Preparatory System. And it's pretty much meant to take students that are exiting our program and connect them with a certificate that will allow them to get a job. And so we have a collaboration with the Basic Nursing Assistant Training Program in Skokie. They're in the second floor there. And of course, our health sciences here at the Lee Center. So this past year, we had 5 of our students from our program. 3 of them came from the English Second Language program, and 2 were our GED graduates, so our high school recipients. And so they took a bridge class. It was like a preparatory class over the summer. And then they got into the CNA program, which is selective admission. So only so many get in. They have to take placement tests. So these 5 got into the program this past fall. It's a 16-week program. They get 7 credits out of that, college credits. And now all 5 of them are certified CNAs in the state of Illinois, and they're holding full-time positions with Endeavor Health. And it's great. It's great to see. And hopefully, I've talked to Dr. Jesse Ivory about potentially with the new medical assistant program initiative that we have to continue to help these students from CNA to go into the MA program. But that's great to see. And our hope is all of our students transitioning to have a path, a pipeline like that, because the ICAPS program is very selective and it's not enough. We do not get enough funding to help more. But our goal is to create more of these bridges with other departments. So then when our students state what degree they want to pursue or what they want to be, it would be great for them to at least get a certificate done that would, allow them to start working in the field. And then eventually that can develop into an associate's or a bachelor's.
And they see that progression along the way. Yeah.
Of course.
Excellent.
Of course.
And on our C side of the house, we are expanding our workforce. And so we're in the process right now of hiring 2 new managers in workforce to be able to expand our programs, which then eventually our adult ed students can feed into it through an ICAPS program as well.
Yeah.
And then transition into the credit side. So
I'm glad you mentioned that, because mission-based work is tough. And sometimes there tends to be this notion that if you really are about the mission, then you'll just do the work no matter who's in the position or whether or not you have the help. But creating opportunities that create employee lines, job lines that provide, that expand the workforce around this is part of the equity framework, right? Being able to provide the foundation and not just expecting for the people to do the work just simply because they love the mission.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like 2 really good success stories. And let me throw one out there. You're looking at one. I started off at Columbia College Chicago because they had an open admissions policy, and my grades were so bad in high school, it was the only place that I could go. And I had to do a bridge program through their continuing ed department to get me started before I could start the semester. So I wouldn't be here today without adult and continuing ed programs in some way, shape, or form. So I want to say thank you for the work that you do. It's valuable. You are seen. You are appreciated. And as a college, we're going to remain committed to providing the necessary resources so that this area can continue to thrive and our students can continue to thrive. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. How can they reach you? Do you all have a website? Do you have an email? How can folks get in touch with the adult and continuing ed department?
adulted@oakton.edu is our email, but of course, Elena, Itri, and Delia are all easily findable.
Yeah, absolutely. So you heard it, adulted@oakton.edu. All right, thanks, folks. Appreciate you coming on to the Critical Conversations podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for having us.
All right, take care.
The Critical Conversations podcast is recorded at Oakton College, located at 1600 East Gulf Road, Des Plaines, Illinois. The show is sponsored in part by the Oakton College Educational Foundation, produced by Erick, Rohn, coordinated by Brenda, Cruz, and hosted by Dr. Rick Daniels. For more information or to connect with us, email critsconpod@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for more Critical Conversations.